beneath a sky choked with swirling snow and lit only by the faint, silver gleam of twin moons. The wind howled like a mourning spirit across the frozen plains of Varelles. Ice crystals clung to every surface, glinting like shattered stars, and the air itself seemed to freeze in the lungs of any who dared breathe too deeply. It was here, in this merciless expanse of white and silence, that Jorin Thorn trudged forward, his thermal suit groaning with each step, his breath fogging the visor of his helmet. Jorin was no soldier, no conqueror, just a xenogeologist from the outer rim colonies, sent to chart the mineral veins beneath Varelles's glacial crust. He'd expected solitude, silence, maybe a few ice worms. He hadn't expected tears. They came first as a sound. A thin, desperate sob nearly swallowed by the wind. Then a shape emerged from the blizzard, small, trembling, wrapped in tattered furs that barely clung to her narrow frame. She was humanoid, yes, but unmistakably alien. Her skin the deep, mossy green of forest shadows, her hair a cascade of pure white that shimmered like frost under moonlight. Her eyes, wide and luminous with panic, locked onto Jorin's visor as if he were the only solid thing in a world unraveling. She stumbled forward, bare feet leaving crimson smudges in the snow, and collapsed at his boots. "Please," she gasped, voice cracking like thin ice. "Human help. My mom. She's dying from hypothermia." Jorin froze, not from the cold, but from the sheer impossibility of it. Hypothermia? On Varelles. The native Varelians were known to thrive in sub-zero temperatures. Their biology included natural antifreeze proteins and heat-retaining dermal layers. For one of them to suffer hypothermia meant something was terribly, catastrophically wrong. He dropped to one knee, unsealing his helmet just enough to speak without his voice being muffled. "Where is she?" he asked, his voice rough but gentle. The girl, her name he would soon learn, was Lyra, pointed a shaking finger toward a jagged ridge half buried in snow. "Cave, behind the icefall. She can't move. She gave me her thermal pelt. Said I had to find help." Her voice broke again, and a tear traced a path down her green cheek, freezing almost instantly. "She said humans are warm, that you carry fire in your suits." Jorin's chest tightened. He'd read reports, dry, academic summaries, about Varelian culture. Matriarchal, deeply communal, fiercely protective of kin. But nothing in those reports prepared him for the raw, animal fear in this child's eyes. Without another word, he scooped Lyra into his arms, cradling her against the heated lining of his suit. She was lighter than he expected, fragile as a bird, but her grip on his jacket was iron-strong. "Hold on," he said. "We're going to get her." The trek to the cave was brutal. The storm worsened, snow stinging Jorin's exposed face like shards of glass. Lyra clung to him, whispering fragments of her story between chattering teeth. Her mother, Mela, had been gathering glacial moss, a rare nutrient source, when the ground gave way beneath her. She'd fallen into a crevasse, breaking her leg and tearing her thermal pelt. By the time Lyra found her, Mela was already shivering uncontrollably, her green skin turning ashen, her breath shallow. She'd shoved her daughter toward the surface, whispering, "Go, find the warm ones." Jorin's heart hammered not just from exertion but from guilt. His team had landed just 3 days ago. Their drills, their seismic pulses, they might have destabilized the ice shelf. He hadn't considered the possibility of native life nearby. Now, a life hung in the balance because of his presence. At last, they reached the cave mouth, a dark gash behind a curtain of frozen waterfalls. Inside, the air was still but frigid, colder than the outside wind. In the dim glow of Jorin's suit lamp, he saw her. Mela lay curled on a bed of shredded furs, her white hair matted with ice, her green skin dull and waxy. Her eyes fluttered open as they approached, and she tried to speak, but only a weak cough emerged. "Lyra," she whispered. "I'm here, Mama," Lyra cried, scrambling from Jorin's arms to kneel beside her. She pressed her small hands to her mother's cheeks, as if she could pour her own warmth into her. Jorin activated his suit's emergency medical protocol. "I've got a thermal blanket and a portable heater," he said quickly. "But she needs more than that. Her core temperature's plummeting. I need to get her to my ship." Mela shook her head weakly. "No ship, dangerous." "It's the only chance," Jorin insisted, unfolding the silver thermal blanket and draping it over her. He activated the heater, a small disc that hummed to life, emitting a soft orange glow. Mela flinched at the sudden warmth, her body trembling violently. Easy, Jorin murmured, adjusting the settings. It's okay. You're safe now. But Mela's eyes were fixed on him, sharp despite her weakness. You human. Why help? Jorin paused. He could have said duty or science or simple decency. But looking at Lyra's tear-streaked face, he said the truth. Because no one should lose their mom like this. Something softened in Mela's expression. She reached out a trembling hand and touched his wrist, her fingers icy, but her touch deliberate. Then you must come with us. Not to your ship. To the heart. The heart. Jorin frowned. Our sanctuary, Lyra explained, eyes wide with sudden hope. Deep under the ice, where the old warmth lives. Mama can heal there. If we get her in time. Jorin hesitated. Going deeper into unknown alien territory was risky. His comms were spotty, his team unaware of his detour. But Mela's breathing was growing shallower by the second. Her lips tinged blue. He made his choice. Show me the way. Lyra led them through a narrow tunnel behind the cave. Its walls slick with ice that pulsed faintly with bioluminescent veins, soft greens and blues that cast eerie shadows. As they descended, the air grew warmer, thick with the scent of minerals and something sweet, like crushed herbs. Jorin carried Mela in his arms now, her weight slight but her presence heavy with urgency. How far? He asked, sweat beading on his brow despite the cold. Not far, Lyra panted. The heart hears us when we're close. Sure enough, a low hum began to vibrate through the ice beneath their feet. A deep, resonant thrum that Jorin felt in his bones. The tunnel opened into a vast cavern, and Jorin stopped dead in his tracks. Before him stretched a chamber unlike anything he'd ever seen. The walls were lined with crystalline structures that glowed from within, pulsing in rhythm with the hum. In the center rose a massive, organic-looking spire, translucent, veined with gold and crimson, radiating palpable heat. Around it, Varelians moved quietly, tending to glowing pools and tending vines that dripped with luminous sap. They turned as one when Jorin entered, their white hair catching the light like halos, their green eyes wary but not hostile. The heart of Varelis, Lyra whispered reverently. An elder stepped forward, tall, her skin etched with intricate silver scars, her hair braided with crystals. She studied Jorin without speaking, then looked at Mela in his arms. Her expression shifted instantly to concern. Place her by the core, she commanded, her voice like wind through stone. Jorin obeyed, laying Mela gently on a smooth stone platform near the base of the spire. The moment her skin touched the warm stone, she gasped, color flooding back into her cheeks. The elder placed her hands on Mela's chest and began to chant in a language that sounded like ice cracking and water flowing. The spire's glow intensified, and golden light seeped into Mela's body like liquid sunlight. Lyra clutched Jorin's hand. She'll be okay now, she said, though her voice trembled with hope rather than certainty. But Jorin's relief was short-lived. A distant rumble echoed through the cavern. Not from the heart, but from above. The ice ceiling trembled, and fine snow sifted down from the tunnel entrance. What's that? He asked sharply. Lyra's face paled. The skybreakers. Before Jorin could ask what that meant, the elder turned to him, her eyes grave. Your kind you drill. You shake the bones of our world. The ice giants awaken. Jorin's stomach dropped. His team's deep-core drill, it must have triggered a glacial shift. How bad? He demanded. The ceiling of this chamber. It will collapse, the elder said simply. The heart may survive, but we and your ship may not. Panic surged through Jorin. He had to warn his team, but Mela wasn't stable yet, and Lyra couldn't be left alone. He looked at the girl, her white hair glowing in the heart's light, her green eyes trusting him completely. I have to go back, he said, to stop the drill, to save my people and yours. Lyra nodded, though tears welled again. Take this. She pulled a small, smooth stone from her pouch, warm to the touch, etched with spirals. It's a shard of the heart. It will guide you and protect you. Jorin tucked it into his suit pocket. It pulsed faintly against his chest, like a second heartbeat. He turned to the elder. How long do we have? 2 hours. Maybe less. 2 hours to cross the storm, disable a drill designed to pierce planetary crust, and return before the sanctuary collapsed. It was madness, but Jorin had never been one to back down from impossible odds. He gave Lyra a quick, fierce hug. Keep her safe, he said. I'll be back. Then he ran. The storm outside had become a white fury. Wind screamed like a banshee, and visibility dropped to near zero. But the heart shard in his pocket glowed brighter with every step, casting a soft path through the blizzard. Jorin pushed himself harder than he ever had, his muscles burning, his lungs raw. He thought of Mela's weak smile, of Lyra's desperate cry, of his own team. Good people who didn't know they were sitting on a ticking time bomb. He reached the drill site just as the ground bucked beneath his feet. His team was already scrambling, alarms blaring from the control module. "Jorin!" shouted Captain Voss, a grizzled woman with cybernetic eyes. "Where the hell have you been? The ice shelf's destabilizing." "I know," Jorin gasped, stumbling to the console. "Shut it down. Now." "But the core sample." "Screw the sample," Jorin roared. "There are people down there. Native life. If this shelf collapses, it'll bury an entire civilization." Voss stared at him, then at the violent tremors shaking the drill rig. She made a decision. Shut it down. Full emergency protocol. The drill groaned to a halt. Silence fell brief, fragile. Then a new sound. A deep, grinding crack, like the planet itself splitting open. "We need to evacuate," Voss said grimly. "Now." But Jorin shook his head. "I'm not leaving. Not yet." Before she could argue, he was running again. Back toward the ridge, back toward the cave, back toward Lyra and her mother. The heart shard burned hot against his chest, as if urging him faster. The tremors grew stronger. Ice towers shattered in the distance, sending plumes of snow into the sky. Jorin's legs screamed in protest, but he didn't stop. He couldn't. When he finally stumbled into the cavern, it was already changing. Cracks spiderwebbed across the ceiling, and chunks of ice crashed into the pools below. The Varelians were evacuating, carrying the young and the frail toward deeper tunnels. Lyra stood by the heart, holding her mother's hand. Mela was sitting up now, color restored to her skin, though she looked exhausted. "You came back," Lyra whispered. "Told you I would," Jorin panted, doubling over to catch his breath. Mela looked at him, her eyes filled with something deeper than gratitude. "You risked your life for us." "You'd have done the same," Jorin said simply. The elder approached, her expression unreadable. "The heart is stable, for now, but the upper chambers will fall. We must go deeper into the roots of the world. It is safe there, but no outsider has ever been allowed." She studied Jorin for a long moment. Then she nodded. "You have earned the right." As the cavern shook around them, Jorin helped Mela to her feet. Lyra took his hand again, her small fingers warm now, strong. Together, they followed the Varelians into a descending spiral tunnel, the heart's glow fading behind them, replaced by the soft luminescence of root-like fungi that clung to the walls. Deeper they went, past ancient carvings and silent pools that reflected starlight from unknown sources. The air grew warmer, richer, humming with unseen energy. At last, they reached a vast underground city. Domes of living crystal, bridges of woven light, gardens of glowing flora. Varelian children peeked from doorways, their white hair and green skin luminous in the ambient glow. Mela leaned on Jorin, her strength returning with every step. "This is our true home," she said softly, "hidden for generations. We thought we'd never share it with an off-worlder." Jorin looked around in awe. "It's beautiful." Lyra tugged his sleeve. "Will you stay? Just for a little while? Until the ice settles?" Jorin thought of his ship, his team, his mission. But he also thought of the trust in Lyra's eyes, the courage in Mela's heart, the warmth of a world that had welcomed him despite his mistakes. "I'll stay," he said, and as the last tremors faded far above, deep in the heart of a frozen world, something new began. Not just survival, but connection. Not just rescue, but understanding. And in the quiet glow of an alien sanctuary, a human and two Varelians sat together, sharing warmth, sharing stories, sharing hope that the ice above would hold, and that the bonds formed beneath it would last far longer. Days passed in the luminous sanctuary beneath Vareli's ice, and Jorin found himself drawn deeper into the rhythms of Varelian life. The underground city, called Nar Vale, or Whispering Root, was alive with quiet purpose. Varelians moved with grace through crystalline corridors, tending to bioluminescent gardens, weaving light strands into clothing, and singing low, resonant hymns that seemed to harmonize with the planet's own pulse. Mela recovered swiftly, her strength returning with every meal of sweet root paste and glowing nectar. Lyra, once trembling with fear, now bounded through the tunnels with a pack of Varelian children, her laughter echoing like wind chimes. Jorin was given a chamber near the heartroot, a smaller offshoot of the great spire that still radiated gentle warmth. He spent his days learning their language, sketching their flora in his datapad, and listening to elders recount tales of skyfalls and ice dreamers. He also kept his comms active, sending coded updates to Captain Voss, assuring her he was safe but unable to return yet. She'd replied only once, "Don't get adopted. We're holding your bunk." He smiled at that, but even as peace settled around him, unease stirred in his gut. It began with the silence. One morning, the usual hum of the heartroot faltered. The golden veins in the walls dimmed. The Varelians grew tense, speaking in hushed tones. Lyra came to Jorin's chamber with wide eyes. "The heart is tired," she whispered. "It hasn't sung in 2 cycles." Jorin frowned. "Is that normal?" "No," she said, clutching the hem of her woven tunic. "The heart never sleeps, unless something is stealing its warmth." That night, Jorin followed Mela and the elder, Silva, to a sealed chamber deep in the city's roots. Inside, a pool of liquid light, once vibrant and swirling, now lay still and dull. Silva placed a hand on its surface and closed her eyes. "The skybreakers did more than shake the ice," she murmured. "They cracked the vein." "The vein?" Jorin asked. "The channel that carries warmth from the planet's core to the heart," Mela explained, her voice tight with worry. "If it's broken, the heart will fade. And without the heart, an Arvale cannot survive." Jorin's mind raced. "Can it be repaired?" Silva turned to him, her silver-scarred face unreadable. "Only by one who carries both skyfire and root blood. A bridge." Lyra stepped forward before anyone could stop her. "I'll go." "No," Mela said sharply. "It's too dangerous. The vein runs through the shattered chasm, where the ice giants sleep." "But I'm small," Lyra insisted. "I can slip through the cracks. And," she looked at Jorin, "he can help. His suit has tools. His hands are warm." Jorin's chest tightened. He hadn't come to Varellis to be a hero, but here he was again, standing at the edge of another impossible choice. "I'll go with her," he said. Silva studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Very well. But know this, if the heart dies, so does the memory of our people. We do not write history in books. We store it in the light. If the heart fades, we forget who we are." The weight of those words settled on Jorin like ice. Preparations were swift. They outfitted Lyra in a reinforced thermal tunic woven with light fibers, and Jorin modified his suit to run on minimal power, conserving heat for emergencies. Silva gave them a vial of concentrated heart essence, to rekindle the vein if you find the break. As they stood at the tunnel entrance leading to the shattered chasm, Mela pulled Jorin aside. "If anything happens to her," she began, then stopped, her green eyes glistening. "Just bring her back. That's all I ask." "I will," Jorin promised, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. The descent into the shattered chasm was like entering the throat of a frozen beast. Jagged ice spires jutted from the walls, and the air grew colder with every step, unnaturally so, as if the planet itself were holding its breath. Strange, low-frequency groans echoed through the tunnels, and once Jorin swore he saw movement in the shadows. Massive, slow, ancient. "They're real," Lyra whispered, noticing his glance. "The ice giants. They're not monsters. They're guardians. But if they wake fully, they'll seal the vein forever." They pressed on, guided by the faint pulse of the heart shard Jorin still carried. After hours of climbing and crawling through narrow fissures, they found it. A massive rupture in the vein channel, a jagged tear where molten warmth should have flowed. Instead, darkness pooled there, thick and cold. "This is it," Lyra said, her voice small but steady. Jorin knelt, scanning the break with his suit sensors. "The fracture's too wide. We can't just patch it. We need to trigger a thermal seal, but that requires intense heat." Lyra unscrewed the vial Silva had given them. "The heart essence can do it, but it needs a spark." Jorin understood. "My suit's emergency flare. It burns at 2000 degrees. "It might work," Lyra said, "but the flare will blind the giants. They'll think the heart is attacking them." "Then we do it fast," Jorin said, already prepping the flare. As he positioned the device, a deep, shuddering growl rolled through the chasm. The ice around them trembled. From the darkness ahead, Two enormous eyes opened, glowing blue, ancient, filled with sorrow rather than rage. The eldest, Lyra breathed. Jorin didn't hesitate. He activated the flare. Blinding white light erupted, searing the air. The heart essence flared in response, surging into the fracture like liquid gold. The vein channel groaned, then began to knit itself back together, warmth flooding the tunnel. But the ice giant roared, not in anger, but in pain. The light was too much for its ancient eyes. It's scared, Lyra cried. Without thinking, she ran toward the giant, holding out her hands. Wait, we're fixing it. We're helping. Jorin's heart leapt into his throat. Lyra, no. But the giant stilled. It lowered its massive head, sniffing the air. Then, slowly, it touched its snout to Lyra's outstretched palm. A low hum vibrated through the ice. Not a threat, but a question. She's not afraid, Jorin realized aloud. Lyra turned to him, eyes shining. They don't hate us. They just want the heart to live too. In that moment, the vein sealed completely. Warmth surged through the chasm, and the heartroots hum returned, stronger than before. The giant bowed its head once, then retreated into the depths, its glow fading like a dying star. Exhausted but triumphant, Jorin and Lyra made their way back to Vale. The city was already changing, light returning to the walls, songs rising again in the corridors. Silva met them at the entrance, her stern face softened by something like awe. You did not just mend the vein, she said. You spoke to the Guardian. That has not happened in 10,000 cycles. Mela swept Lyra into a fierce embrace, tears streaming down her cheeks. You reckless, brilliant child, she whispered. But Jorin felt no triumph, only a growing sense of displacement. He'd saved them, yes, but he was still an outsider, a temporary guest in a world that would never truly be his. That night, as he sat alone in his chamber, a soft knock came at the door. It was Lyra, holding a small, glowing orb. The elders want to show you something, she said. Curious, he followed her to the central chamber of the Heartroot. Silva and Mela stood waiting, along with a dozen other Varelians. In the center of the room floated a sphere of pure light, the heart's memory core. We do not just store history here, Silva said. We store bonds. And today, the heart added a new thread. She gestured, and the light shifted, forming an image. Jorin carrying Mela through the storm. Then another. Him standing before the ice giant, flare in hand. Then another, him teaching Lyra how to tie a human knot, both of them laughing. You are no longer just a visitor, Mela said softly. You are part of our story now. Jorin's throat tightened. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Lyra said, taking his hand. Just stay. But fate, it seemed, wasn't done with twists. The next morning, alarms blared through Vale, not from within, but from Jorin's comms. Captain Voss's voice crackled through, strained and urgent. Jorin, we've got company. Corporate surveyors. They detected geothermal anomalies from orbit. They're landing in 6 hours. They don't care about natives, they want the core. Jorin went cold. Galactic Mining Consortium, the same outfit that had strip-mined 3 colonies dry. If they found Vale, they'll destroy everything, Mela whispered. Silva's eyes hardened. Then we hide. We always have. But they have thermal scanners, Jorin said. They'll see the heat signature of the heart. Unless, an idea sparked in his mind, risky, desperate, but possible. What if we make them think the heat source is dead? He explained quickly. Use the heart's own energy to create a false cold zone on the surface, masking the sanctuary's signature. It would require diverting power from the Heartroot, dangerous but survivable for a short time. Silva considered it. It could work, but only if the diversion is anchored on the surface, near your ship. I'll do it, Jorin said. This time, Mela didn't argue. She simply handed him a new thermal pelt, woven with heart fibers. Come back, she said, or I'll come find you myself. With Lyra at his side, she refused to stay behind. Jorin returned to the surface under cover of a fresh blizzard. They planted the heart anchor near his ship just as the corporate lander descended. A sleek, black vessel marked with the GMC insignia. From a ridge, Jorin watched as armored figures emerged, scanning the ice with ruthless efficiency. But their thermal readouts showed only cold thanks to the anchor's illusion. Frustrated, they moved on, heading toward a false anomaly Jorin had programmed into their system. They'll be back, Lyra said quietly. Maybe, Jorin replied, but not today. As they turned to descend once more into the sanctuary, Lyra looked up at him. Will you ever go back to your world? Jorin thought of Earth. The crowded cities, the endless noise, the loneliness he'd carried for years. Then he looked at Lyra, at the green-skinned woman waiting below, at the glowing city that had welcomed him like family. Maybe, he said, but not yet. And as the ice closed above them, sealing the secret once more, Jorin knew one thing for certain. He wasn't just a visitor anymore. He was home. Weeks turned into months beneath the ice of Varelli's, and the rhythm of life in NR Vale settled into something deeper than coexistence. It became kinship. Jorin no longer felt like an outsider peering in. He was woven into the fabric of the city, his presence as natural as the heartroots glow. He helped rebuild the upper tunnels damaged by the ice shifts, taught the young Varellians how to calibrate simple thermal sensors, and even learned to brew the bitter, invigorating root tea that Mela favored. In return, she showed him how to read the ice, how its cracks whispered warnings, how its layers held memories of ancient storms. Their conversations, once cautious and formal, grew easy, filled with laughter and quiet silences that needed no translation. Lyra, ever perceptive, began leaving little tokens in Jorin's chamber. A carved ice flower that never melted, a strand of woven light shaped like a human hand, a tiny clay figure of him holding a scanner. For your collection, she'd say with a grin, though her eyes held a question she never voiced aloud. It was during the Festival of Twin Moons, a rare celestial alignment that bathed the surface in silver light, that everything changed. The Varellians gathered in the heart chamber, singing hymns that resonated through the stone. Mela wore a ceremonial tunic threaded with starlight fibers, her white hair braided with living vines that bloomed in the heart's warmth. Jorin stood among them, no longer in his thermal suit but in a tunic of his own, gifted by Silva herself. After the songs, Mela approached him. Her green skin shimmered faintly in the low light, and her eyes held a vulnerability he'd never seen before. There is an old custom, she said softly, when two souls choose to share a path, not just for survival, but for joy, they bind their breath beneath the heart. It is our closest word to a marriage. Jorin's heart stuttered. Are you asking me? She smiled, a rare, full smile that lit her entire face. I am asking if you would stay, not as a guest, not as a rescuer, but as family. Before he could answer, Lyra darted between them, beaming. Say yes. Please say yes. Jorin looked from Lyra's hopeful eyes to Mela's steady gaze, and something inside him, something that had been searching, drifting, aching, finally settled. Yes, he said, his voice thick. 1,000 times, yes. The binding ceremony was simple but profound. Beneath the pulsing heartroot, Jorin and Mela pressed their foreheads together as Silva chanted the old words. They breathed in unison, their exhales mingling in the warm air, and the heart flared gold in response. A sign, the elders said, that the planet itself blessed their union. Lyra stood beside them, holding both their hands, tears of joy tracing paths down her green cheeks. Afterward, the city celebrated. Bioluminescent petals rained from the upper gardens, and feasts of spiced moss loaf and crystal fruit filled the corridors. Even the ice giants, far below, hummed a low, approving note that vibrated through the stone. Life after the binding was richer than any dream Jorin had dared imagine. He and Mela shared a chamber near the heartroot, its walls lined with shelves of his datapads and her woven light tapestries. Mornings began with shared tea and quiet planning, how to strengthen the vein channel, how to teach the young ones about off-world stars. Evenings ended with stories, Jorin recounting Earth's oceans and cities, Mela describing the ice dreams of her ancestors. Lyra thrived in the center of it all. She called Jorin Papa Jorin within a week, and he never corrected her. He taught her human games, and she taught him Varelian dances. They built snow sculptures on rare surface excursions, always careful, always together. When Jorin finally contacted Captain Voss again, he didn't ask for extraction. He asked for supplies, seeds, medical kits, educational modules. She sent them without question, along with a message, "Tell your new family hello, and don't forget to send grandkids pictures." Years passed. The GMC never returned. The false thermal readings and Jorin's carefully planted data decoys convinced them Varelli's was geologically dead. Meanwhile, NAR Vale flourished. With Jorin's help, the Varellians developed sustainable energy grids that drew from the heart without straining it. They even began tentative contact with other off-world researchers, Only those vetted by Jorin, only those who came in peace. Mela's hair grew longer, streaked now with strands of silver that matched the scars on her hands. Badges of survival, of love, of a life fully lived. Jorin's face weathered too, lines forming at the corners of his eyes from years of laughter in the glow of alien suns. And Lyra? She grew into a strong, brilliant young woman. Part scientist like her father, part seer like her mother, bridging two worlds with grace and fire. On the 10th anniversary of their binding, they stood again beneath the heartroot, now surrounded not just by family, but by a new generation, two children of their own. A boy with Mela's green skin and Jorin's curious eyes, and a girl with white hair that shimmered like starlight and a laugh that echoed Lyra's. Silva, older but still sharp, placed a hand on Jorin's shoulder. "You came as a stranger," she said. "You leave as a legend." "I'm not leaving," Jorin said, smiling as Mela leaned into his side, their hands entwined. "This is where I belong." And as the heart pulsed warmly around them, filling the chamber with golden light, there was no doubt. They were home. Not just surviving, but thriving. Not just together, but whole. In the quiet heart of a frozen world, beneath twin moons and endless stars, a human, an alien, and the family they built lived, not just happily, but deeply, fully, and forever. Years flowed like the warm currents of the heartroot, steady and bright. Jorin's hair silvered at the temples, but his hands remained sure, whether mending a thermal conduit or braiding Lyra's daughter's hair for her first ice blossom ceremony. Mela's laughter echoed through Narvale's glowing halls, now often joined by the playful shouts of their grandchildren, who raced barefoot across warm stone. Their green skin dusted with bioluminescent pollen. The heart thrived, stronger than ever, its light pulsing in time with the family's shared breaths. Lyra became a bridgekeeper, guiding respectful off-world scholars through Varelian wisdom, always with a photo of her human father pinned to her tunic. Jorin never returned to Earth, but Earth came to him, in letters from old friends and star maps drawn by curious children who called him Grandfather Skywalker. Mela and Jorin still shared morning tea in their chamber, watching the light fungi bloom in patterns only they understood. When the twin moons aligned again, they renewed their binding beneath the heart, surrounded by 3 generations of their blended family. Even the ice giants hummed a blessing from the deep. No drills shook the ice. No strangers threatened their peace. The galaxy turned, vast and indifferent. But here, in this hidden sanctuary, love had carved a world of its own. Jorin would often stand at the surface entrance at dawn, Mela beside him, their fingers laced, watching snow fall like stardust. "Would you do it all again?" she once asked. He kissed her forehead, breathing in the scent of frost and moss. "In every lifetime," he said. And so they lived, not as human and alien, but as one soul in 2 forms, wrapped in warmth, rooted in trust, crowned by joy. Their story became part of the heart's light, whispered in lullabies and etched in crystal, forever glowing, forever whole.